our leading experts on leading from a passionate place, hosted by esteemed moderator Tammy Terrell.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Leading from a Passionate Place, Bottom Line Leadership. We're leading, we have our panel. For our panelists here, as you can tell, all beautiful people. We have Terry Ferguson. We have Tammy Jackson-Moore. Devin, the handsome Devin. We have Veronica Mitchell. We have Sabrina Harris. And we have Tara Kennedy. As you would go ahead and look in your bags, their bio is actually in there and you can read about them, everything that they do. But what we're going to do is we're going to ask them different questions. At first, we're going to go ahead and get a little synopsis of what they do, how they do it. And then if you'd like, in your booklet, you can maybe come up with a question or two. Maybe we will ask a few questions if time permits from any of the audience members. Okay? All right, thank you. Now, we're talking about leading from a passionate place. It is said that strength of your passion is almost directly related to the number of sacrifices that you make. I would like to direct this question to Sabrina. Can you please define passion in your own words?
Good morning to each of you. When I think about passion, I also think in context of compassion. I think passion and compassion align. But passion within itself is internal. It's what's within you that's deeply motivating, intrinsic, if you will. It's that thing that you feel like you have to do. It's that burning desire within you. But when it's also combined with compassion, is the external, you're able to really feel things and give that outwardly. So I wake up every day, I'm passionate about the clients that I see, the job that I perform, the people that I oversee, the work, but I also care about the people. And Tessie, and she expertly touched on it earlier, but also to say, I'm passionate about what I do, which is an internal feeling, but I'm also compassionate, which is what I do to others, and that's how I would define it.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I'd also like to pose that question to Devin.
I think Sabrina did a great job of answering that question. The same thing is passion to me is that internal ambition. So it's something deep rooted inside of you that you know you want to get out of you, and it's a calling. You know what I mean? You feel it in your gut when you feel like you're not aligned with it. So it's that internal ambition, and it starts to transcend itself as actual action. And it starts to actually materialize itself in the work that you do, you know, the actions every day that you are calling yourself towards to do, and it's something that's that internal factor. So I believe it does come from within, and then, like you said, with the external factor of being compassion for others.
Thank you so much, Devin. Now, it's also said that there are a number of fears that one has around failure, vulnerability, and even success at some points. A question that I'd like to ask is, what drives your commitment to your work? And I'd like to hear from Terry.
Good morning. Good morning. What drives my commitment for work? I would answer that question first by saying, for myself, it is a calling. It is a knowing in my knower that I was created to give and to impact the lives of the people that I interact with on a daily basis. That's family, that's friends, that's those that I work with, those that I work for, and those that I serve.
Great answer. I'd I would also like to pose that question to Veronica. I'd like to hear from you.
Good morning. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Sure. What drives your commitment to your work?
What drives my commitment to my work is last week, Saturday, was the 3-year anniversary of the passing of my sister to domestic violence. So what drives my passion is not letting that moment in time define who she was. I didn't want people to remember her for that. So I started a foundation because I wanted to remember who she was, what she stood for, her love for people, and I made that my passion. So I'm driven by that, and that passion for her also pulled out of me what I was supposed to be doing anyway. What I knew God already purposed me to do. So it pushed me out of my comfort zone of just being a homebody, a to myself kind of person, to really getting out there and trying to impact the lives of other young women so nobody else's family have to endure that pain.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much for that. Now I'd like to pose another question. Why is your passion mostly talked about in female-ran industries, yet rarely in male-dominated industries? The first person I'd like to hear from is Tara.
Good morning. To answer that question, I think as women, we have a nurture feeling. We tend to, especially in our industry, we tend to seek positions that that would surround nurturing, especially if you have kids or children or your family. You're going to want to make sure that you're working in the industry that's going to cater to those needs. Not to say that men are not nurturers, and I'm sure you'll expand on that. But it's just when we hear passion, that's like a feeling that to me that's associated with women, because we're passionate about everything that we do. We are so organized, and everything is so detailed that we have to think about all aspects of our lives.
Thank you so much. I'd like to pose that same question to Devin, please.
So why is it that passion, you said that passion doesn't come up as much in the male?
Dominated industry, yes.
I think that comes from a little bit of, I think it's twofold. So a lot of times when you think of a male-dominated industry, you think about a male being a provider. So I think sometimes your passion falls on the back burner when you think about the things that you actually want to go out and accomplish. For myself, as a young man, I wanted to play football. That was the only thing from the time I was 4 years old. I was going to make $1 million. I was going to buy my mom a house. I was going to do all these things. And from a young age, I was thinking about being a provider. You know what I mean? And I think, being raised by a single mother, that was essential to me and what I wanted to do. So when football phased out of my life, I had an opportunity to go to the Oakland Raiders. I thought I was going to make $1 million, and then I got cut. And then I came home. And, for me, I had to find something else that would sustain me going forward. I had to find something that was deeper than just actually making money or doing something that I could actually wake up every morning and feel like I'm actually bringing something to not only the world, but just to fulfill myself. And I fell on working in social services. And I saw my mom do that for years, and I didn't think that I would ever do it. But of course, I feel like that was what she told me was the calling of my life. So I feel like when you find, something that you actually enjoy doing and you wake up and you don't feel burdened by it, I think you have to follow it.
Thank you so much. Now, passionate people are courageous. They smile through tough times. They have a driving force that surpasses all normal understanding. I'd like to hear from Tammy. What did it take for you to move beyond your personal hurt, any loss, any hang-up, for you to get to the work?
Good evening, and good morning. Good morning, beautiful people. Good morning. I think what happened for me is I saw that, especially in my community, Belle Glade, Polk, and South Bay,
I saw that there was a need for the people to reach their fullest potential, and they needed opportunities available to them to make that happen. So I stepped out there and became that mouthpiece for them. In the Glades community, oftentimes there are things that need to be done and things that need to get done on behalf of the people, but they just don't know exactly how to get it done. Some of them are intimidated and or timid because they seem to think that they don't possess the correct language skills to speak on their behalf. So I decided in forming an organization, it's a 501c4, to speak on their behalf. And we do that in Tallahassee. We go to the federal government. We do it on a local level. And we also go to those business and corporations that have pretty much confined some of the people in the communities of Belle Glade, Pokey, and South Bay. And we do that with passion, as well as being very deliberate and strategic about the things that the people in this community deserve. And we're not gonna back down. Oftentimes, the little people get looked over, and they need somebody to speak up for them. And we have been very, very successful in doing that, and we will continue to do that.
Honestly, this year has been one of the hardest years for me to press through that pain and loss and hurt. Going through her trial in September, memorializing her death in December, and still trying to get up and have that same drive, that same tenacity to do and impart something else in another young lady's life. So I'm reminded that it's not about me. It's never about me. And through the pain, through all of that, in the trial, just wanted to clam up, and I'm just being real, just not even wanting to go out the house at one point after that trial. Seeing those images from a baby sister that you loved, that you adored, it was hard. And I said I was trying not to cry. But y'all bear with me. I asked God, and I just prayed just for strength, because I know that although I lost my baby sister, that her life had purpose, that her life had meaning, and that I needed to make sure that what God called me to do, I did it no matter what I was going through. So to impart in other people and other young ladies and look at them, the ones that some of us may not want to touch, the ones that some of us may not want to speak to, the ones that some of us may not want to hug and just reach out, just to love on them, is so rewarding for me. So pushing through the pain and hurt is easy when I think about the lives that are being impacted, not because of Veronica, but because of God and the mission that He gave me after losing my baby sister.
Thank you so much. Now, just like Veronica in moving past your hurt to get to your passion, we all fall in love with things. Some are hobbies, yet things that light up our whole being. But it's hard to discern between a hobby and actually something that's going to be profitable, a business, a vision, something that someone else is going to believe in. A question that I'd like to pose: how do you go about financing your vision? Because many of us in this audience may have a passion, may have a vision, but where do I start? What do I do? I would love to pose that question to Sabrina.
Financing is very interesting and it's complicated on many levels. I'm going to be very honest with you, especially when it comes to nonprofit organizations. A lot of it is driven by donations, fundraising, sponsorships, and things of that nature. But a significant piece relationships with people, but not only that, it's having them buy into your why. A lot of people talk about what I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna do it, how I'm gonna execute it, and all of that is great. A plan is necessary, but when you reconcile inside of yourself, for me, and I'll just touch on it, is the why was my survivorship. I survived domestic violence and abuse that almost ended my life, in addition to date rape. And I was very committed to kind of just moving on with my life and, you know, having the closure be what it was and progress on. And God dealt with me that what you just said is exactly what God gave to me. This is far greater than you, Sabrina. I allowed you to survive. I not only took you through it, I carried you through it, I connected you with these people so you can go back and now bless the nation. You can go back now and uplift and empower and support and carry and show the individuals who are hurting that I can be the pain, I can be the peace, and I can be the comfort. So a lot within your connections, your stability and everything else is going to tie back to the research that you do, how knowledgeable that you are. I didn't just pick up a mantle of a nonprofit and just run with it. I did years of research. I did years of beating the pavement. How many meetings that have I had? But you know why? It's because I understood my why. God gave me a mantle and I was going to honor it, because everything that God does or allows us to do should be in a spirit of excellence. If that drives you, you will always be successful.
Yes. I would like to ask Devin the same question, but I don't know.
So everything Sabrina said was spot on. But at the same time, in my situation, was just started my nonprofit. I'm in 501c3. I just got approved in October. And it's a process. I mean, you have to understand that if you really say that you're driven by a mission, that means that you're not going to stop just because money stopped. And in the beginning, when I was working, I was showing up to work every day, but at the same time, I would stay after hours at work and work on my business plan. I would work on the fundamental strategies of how I'm going to raise money. And I started, I don't know if you guys know about Acorns, but it's a way to save money on an app. And I would pretty much put $30 a week into this Acorns. And it'll take my remainder change of every time I swipe my card, it'll put change aside. And before I looked up, I had $1,500 to start. And that was my initial push to put that into what is now the organization that I have. And I mean, that was all of my money, of course, but my savings money. But at the same time, I wanted that to be, you know, what drove me, because I wasn't going to let money stop. Well, when money stopped me. And at the same time, now, you know, being able to have the 501c3 and be able to receive donations and be able to be a tax-deductible organization, you know, you get in there, you're like, okay, now you have to actually do the work. You have to actually get people to buy into your why. And, you know, so at this point, yes, getting started, you can be very strategic in the beginning, and you have to be able to pull from your own resources. Don't expect people to just give you money because you're passionate about what you do. It doesn't work like that. You know, but if you're passionate and you're diligent in it, you can start. And you don't need other people to really back you as much as you think you do to just get your mission out.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, just speaking about having a vision and knowing your purpose, there are times when you have a dream, you have goals that no one else sees. And what I'd like to ask each and every one here, because it seems as though everyone has a story. There's a background to everything. There's a why, there's a vision, there's a belief that each and every one of you came up here so passionately about. And this question I'd like to ask everyone. How do you get others to see or believe in your vision enough to engage in it? I'd like to start with Tara.
Okay. Well, a couple of years ago, let's say about 3 years ago, I was in a domestic violence situation, and I didn't know how I was going to get out of the situation. And I work for a legal firm, and just to have to deal with domestic violence when you're dealing with clients that are in a domestic violence situation, it was like I felt like I was a traitor. I'm telling you one thing, but yet instead I'm practicing the total opposite. So, unfortunately, God fixed it to where I got out of the situation, but I got out of the situation in a horrible way. My life had totally changed, and one day I found myself in Flagler Drive, I'm sorry, and I stopped my car in the middle of the road and just knelt down and just started screaming and asked God to please, if you just get me out of this situation, if you just save my life, I promise to you that I will do everything to make sure that each and every person is aware of domestic violence, is aware of all the situation that's going on. So my whole commitment and my whole vision is about educating the community, educating adults, educating children on human trafficking, domestic violence, bullying, HIV/AIDS. And I put myself out there, even though I kind of held back for a couple of years of not wanting to come forward and let people know my situation, because I was ashamed and felt that there were a whole lot of people that would not be receptive to who I am. So putting myself out there is part of my vision for other people, that you don't have to be in relationships that are abusive, that you don't have to be ashamed if you're HIV positive or if you have AIDS. If you're in human trafficking, there are organizations, there are people that are out there that will stand out for you. So I am constantly promoting these issues throughout the year and getting people to understand, to be educated on all these issues so that they can recognize what human trafficking is. They can recognize when someone's in an abusive situation, and to be aware of all the resources and all the organizations and the community, the people that are out there that are willing to help you.
Thank you.
If you know anything about the Glades community, Belglade, Punky, and South Bay, you already know that there are a myriad of challenges that exist in that community. And in starting an organization to address those challenges, it was a little, I guess you say, testy at first, because there were some people that just really did not want to get to the root of the problem. They just wanted to continue to put the Band-Aid on it. But we had to really have some tough conversations. And some of those tough conversations were had with some of the people, the politicians, that just constantly perpetuated the existence as it was in the Glades area. Very little housing options, very minimal jobs. The jobs that exist are in agriculture, and agriculture pays good money, but we need an opportunity to expand and diversify our workforce. So we had to have those tough conversations. And as I mentioned, some of those conversations were held with politicians, and we found that there were people that wanted to join in with our efforts and have those conversations with some of the politicians, but they couldn't because it became political. And when you step in politics, you oftentimes remove your financial being as it currently is. So we found that it was necessary for us to form a 501c4, so those people that wanted to assist us financially could do it without us having to report it to the Internal Revenue. So we've been able to develop relationships, some extensive relationships with organizations and individuals to get the work done. There's some housing options that are coming up now in the Glades. There's additional employment opportunities that are coming up in the Glades. But we had to do that, and we had to be rather forceful, but as I mentioned earlier, strategic with making that happen. And it's happening now. We have to always keep our finger on the pulse, because there is some conversations amongst some of the higher-ups in our society about removing some of our lands in the Glades community and flooding that area. So we have to have those conversations to let them know you can't do that, because there are people that live here, and quite honestly, a lot of the people that will be impacted are people that are black and brown, like many of us here in this room. So we have to stand up and make certain that those people's plight is taken into consideration for whatever decisions that are made. And we do that on a constant and continuous basis, and we're committed to doing that. And as I mentioned, some changes are beginning to come. We can't become complacent, because we have found that when we become complacent, they're having their backdoor meetings determining what they're going to do the next legislative session. So we continue going back and forth to Tallahassee. We continue going back and forth to DC and having those tough conversations that should have been had quite some time ago.
Thank you so much. Sure. We're going to go ahead and quickly answer this particular question. How do you get others, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place.
See your vision.
To see your vision, right? To see your vision and actually engage you.
I think that was one of the most difficult things for me to honestly let go of my vision just being mine. And I think for a lot of people, once you get started and you're doing a nonprofit, the one thing that it's like having a baby, it's like having a child. In that first year, you want to nurture this child, you want this child to be yours. And then after year 2, you're like, listen, come here, come help me. Just come and get it, So for me, in that first year, it was the toughest thing to do was to let people in, because I was very protective of one of the clients that I serve. Because, we deal with mental health, behavioral health with adolescents, especially young men. So one of the things are emotional intelligence that Nicole talked about. We go in depth, and I tell them a little bit of my struggles. I tell them about things that, to me is very personal. And I wanted them to always have this safe space to be able to talk about these things. And so in the beginning, it was tough for me to be able to kind of let people in, because I'm trying to protect something that I've helped build and fund and all these things, But at the same time, you have to understand that it cannot grow if you don't let people in. It cannot grow outside of what you want it to be if you just try to confine it and keep it to what it is. And through that process, I've learned to really, allow people to come in to be able to be experts of their own experience. And I think that was one of the things that I learned, and through that process, to be able to actually grow and branch off and invite, the people to understand what I really do and what the organization is meant to do.
Thank you so much.
So there's several points that I want to make in answering that question. And the first would be something that Nicole shared, is that you have to have a really strong belief in yourself.
Amen.
You have to believe in yourself and believe in the vision that you have been given. The second would be that you need to be crystal clear on what that vision is and have a simplistic way of communicating it to others. That way they're going to be more, it'll be easier for them to grasp what you're trying to share. The third would be something that my friend Sabrina said, is that you need to have a story. People buy into stories because they can relate to stories, and that makes your vision relatable. And then the last thing that I would say is that you have to be consistent with that thing. Day in and day out, you need to always be communicating your vision constantly. And that's what I would say.
To all leaders and aspiring leaders, excuse me, I'm going to leave 2 words with you: authenticity and transparency. Before I accepted the mantle from God, I had to reconcile myself, okay? A part of it was not just me opening up and saying, this has happened to me, and having a platform to share a story or writing a book or an article or something like that, just to say I'm accomplished. I had to reconcile within myself that if I'm going to speak and teach empowerment and mental health and all of that, have I done my work in my Iyanla Van Zandt voice? So yes, I did intensive therapeutic work. This counselor, mental health counselor, still has, hear me well, a mental health counselor. But primarily, it was reconciling my relationship with God, because it's a mantle, it's not a show. So I said, okay, God, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. So I love people, but my organization is not connected to everybody, if that makes sense. God is the first and foremost, prayer, discernment, and all of those pieces. But transparency, and a lot is lost on social media. People say, you social media famous, I know. That's not what it's all about. I see you, can I give you a good word? Can I pray for you? Can I impart this in you? What can I do for you? Can I connect you with other people? Define the obvious that is me. Because it's not about the attention, it's for God to get the glory. It goes back to my why. But people see through the fluff. People see through the foolery and do no harm. If you can't help people, don't hurt people.
That's right.
We live in a society that is broken and devastated and bloated and all of that. So if I'm going to take the mantle, it has to start with me. And that meant aligning myself with God, understanding my why, being true to my morals, ethics, and everything else that associated with it. And then I'm going to give you the real. I'm as straightforward as they come. Truth, no chaser. Sabrina tells you how it is, but I do it in love.
I think the way for me to engage people, people know my story, my sister's story. My sister was gunned down in front of our home in broad daylight. Didn't even really know the extent till the trial, but bullets from her chest to her ankle. And so it's not hard for me to engage people with her story. But one thing that I pride myself on is I'm being a real person. You know, I tell young ladies that, listen, I've been through things, I've gone through things, I'm no better than you, I got problems just like you have problems. I think we just have to be real with people and stop acting like we're up here, you know, and everyone else is down here. So I just thank God for giving me that humility to relate to people, not from a place of being better, but just being like a sister that they can confide in, you know. You don't know how many young ladies inbox me when they see a video or they come to an empowerment seminar. You have no idea how many young ladies are hurting silently and secretly, and they don't want the family to know. They don't want the sister to know. They don't want the mother to know. They need an unbiased ear, unjudgmental. We gotta not be judgmental when we approach young ladies, especially in this day and age, because they're hurting. We're hurting. I hurt. And I tell them, I'm hurting too. I hurt. I've been through things. I've been molested. I've been this and I've been that. You know, I just want them to know that I've gone through some of the same challenges that they've gone through. And I think just being real and just displaying the love of God.
Now, to honor time, we're going to have our panelists return back to the audience. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask them, they will be here and you can pass the questions on to them, or you can meet them out there during lunchtime. But as you can tell, in terms of passion, following your passion, it takes bravery. And it's a path of unexpected joys. It has its highs and its lows. But be assured that it's a guiding light to your ultimate purpose in life. And we'd like to leave you with that. Thank you, each and every one of you, for bearing your soul here today. Thank you.